Golly gosh, sorry, I'm just trying to get everything up in front. First time using this particular software. Okay, so if you can look here, you can see there is an association for everybody. And some of the associations are a little bit random, but we've got, no matter what they are, no matter how big, no matter how small, everybody is being affected by the current pandemic situation. And what we want to go through today is looking at, well, how is that affecting people, and what can we do about it? Now, I'm going to go through, sorry, I'm having a little trouble seeing everybody right now with this issue. Just a moment, apologies for the technical difficulties. Okay, I can see all the messages going on there. I'm going to try sharing that screen again and see if we can make that work this time. Okay. All right, let's try that here. We're just going to have to go with it. I can't see the chat, unfortunately. So if anyone just wants to bear with me as we go through, when I stop sharing, I'll take another look at it. Okay, so basically what's happening at the moment, there's a huge negative impact from what's going on. We've got loss of lives due to illness, which is of course the obvious one, but there's so much else that's going on at the moment. We've got here, the financial loss by associations is going to be extreme. Everybody I know has had to shift or cancel their events. It's an absolute financial disaster for so many people. The loss of members and the loss of volunteers who we rely on for so much of what we do. Member jobs and businesses are going, and we've got staff away due to illness, which means that conceivably, if people haven't self-isolated effectively, an entire association staff can be down. And the level of personal trauma that we're seeing people experience is unbelievable. But what I really believe is this is the times where associations can shine. This is your opportunity to make a massive, tangible difference to the lives of your members. And we weren't existed to help people. We don't exist to help people when times are going well. We exist to help people when they're in the tough times. And it doesn't get much tougher than what we're doing at the moment. So you have an opportunity here to make a tangible impact, a massive positive impact on the lives, careers, and businesses of your members. But to do this, it means that we've all got to focus on our strengths and streamline our operations to where we can maximize that impact. And if we come out of this, and associations have done that and have been innovative, and I can tell you now it's happening, the level of innovation that I'm seeing is absolutely incredible, well, we're going to emerge stronger than we've ever been before. And really, that's what today is about. I want to talk to you about how we can achieve that. And the first thing I want to start off with is the context that we're operating from. This is an environment where every single person we're dealing with is suffering some level of trauma. You've got members who are having their entire lives upended, whether they're working from home or having to work in a situation where they risk exposure to the virus and potentially impact on their family. They can be juggling children, and you can see the list here. There is so much happening in our members' lives at the moment, and they're scared. And when people are scared, they look for somebody to show leadership. And this is where associations have such an opportunity to demonstrate that leadership, because in a lot of cases, you may be their only hope of a resolution for what they're going through. And it might be through your actions that you are the one that rescues people from whatever disaster they're going through right now, whether it be for work, career, health, or whatever it might be. And one of the things I want to stress up front, it's the decisions that we make now, today, that are going to have these long-lasting impacts. And it's really easy when you're in an association not to necessarily see that, but it is massive what's going on. So what I'd like to talk through is, well, what are the 4 areas? Now, some of you would have seen the copy of the free pandemic management strategy template that I sent out. And if you didn't, I'll send you a link on Monday. But I want to go into some of those a little bit more deeply if we can. Now, when we're looking at what you can do, there's 4 key areas of activity that associations need to undertake. It's about demonstrating consistent, purposeful, and calm leadership, exerting your influence to secure support for your members, not just now, but also for the post-pandemic period where we will be entering into a recession. And you can start work now on projects that are going to assist your members as we enter that time. providing the solutions that members need when they need them. So the right solutions for the right members at the right time. I'm going to talk more about that. And also, how do you ensure the financial sustainability of your own association while this is happening? And I know associations are in trouble right now, and they're having to re-gear themselves, and very unexpectedly so. So what I'm going to do is, I think, I found my thing here. I can see the Q&A coming up. Is there any question? If you've got any questions, just pop them into the Q&A and I'll be able to have a look at that coming up, because I've just seen that come through. No questions there, and we can, okay. So what we're going to do is go then and look at these 4 key areas. If you have any questions coming up, just make a comment there, and yeah, I think you can upvote them if you can see those. Are we supposed to be on video? No, sorry, Mark. We've had quite a few hundred people register for this. I would have loved for everybody to be on video, but I couldn't make it happen, unfortunately. But this is the first of a number of webinars that we're going to be doing, and what we would like to do is some smaller group opportunities for people to talk in groups as well. But I have got the chat and I have got the Q&A open, so I can help. Yes, Patricia, we're going to be talking about examples of innovations moving forward. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so demonstrate consistent, purposeful and calm leadership. The first thing is having a clear written strategy that outlines where you want to go. How are you going to get through this crisis? What are you going to do? It's got to be practical. We're not talking about a tome here. We're talking about something that can be written on a page or 2 of paper that you can share to people and they understand where you're heading forward. And part of that means that your leadership must be united in their vision of what they want to achieve going on here. The associations that I've seen to be most successful are those who the board and the staff, particularly the leadership, agree on the pathway through and they're united in their approach towards it. What this does mean is we're having to collaborate with people that even 2 or 3 weeks ago we never would have imagined that we would. Here in Australia, I can't tell you how shocked I was when I walked into the local Woolworths store and saw a sign there with the logos of its 3 main competitors, Woolworths, Coles, IGA and Aldi, all united together to put up signage in each of their stores with each other's logos talking about their united front in this crisis. And that's the kind of collaboration we see. The people who were your competitors 3 weeks ago are not necessarily anymore. You have here issues like, and the other thing we're seeing people do really well is communication. If you've got a plan going forward, keep in mind, if you want to mobilize people, if you want to get people behind what you want to do, there's 3 things that really achieve it, and it's not cash cows and holidays. What we're looking at is having a plan, having a purpose. What do you want to do? Having a plan to get there, but progress along the pathway towards achieving that plan is a huge driving force. So figure out who you need to communicate with, and this isn't sending a press release. It's mapping out all your stakeholders, members, non-members, sponsors, staff members, volunteers, and figuring out what's the messaging. I know a number of organisations have put in place something as simple as Facebook page, Twitter updates, a page on their website that they regularly update. And do you know what? Even if your update that you're putting up on your website is, we've got no new news today, which I'm hoping it isn't, but things that talk about what you're doing as we go through these other elements, so people can see that you're doing something, because it's no good just to be doing the good if people don't understand and get the security of knowing that somebody's working on their behalf. But of course, while you're doing, and just looking at some of the comments here, and do you know what, we're going to talk about that community element as well, because I think that's absolutely critical what you've said there, Mark. It is fundamental that you give associations, that the members of your associations, that feeling that there's someone there who's got their back, because they need it right now. And while this is happening, as much as you can, start thinking about the future, because at the very best, we're heading into a recession after this happens. And there's different types of strategies that will assist people through that. And in fact, let's have a chat about that now. As an association, you have the ability to exert influence on behalf of your members. Now, when you exert that influence, timing to avoid over communication, just looking at that question, it is, if you haven't got anything useful to say, well, you don't need to say it. But I know you look at the Commerce Queensland is doing some magnificent work, and their timing is continuous every day. I think I'm seeing updates from Stephen there almost on an hourly basis through LinkedIn and everything else. But the stuff's really interesting. And you know what I love about what they're doing? It's not just about how they're trying to do big things that don't affect anybody. They're also talking about the little things they're doing, like giving staff money to go and spend through local businesses to help keep the small businesses afloat. And some really innovative ideas. I really recommend checking out Stephen Tate's profile on LinkedIn and seeing some of the work that they're doing there. Yes, and I see the gender op shops there, and that is a huge issue, and looking at other pathways to get people through. But let's talk about the influence. You've got two different options here, two different things you need to do. First, short term. Where is the critical need in your members? So identify who is going to be most adversely affected and who needs assistance. So it might be things like advocating to government for short-term specific stimulus initiatives to affect people who are going to be particularly harshly dealt by this crisis. But it also might be something else, because right now there are people still spending. For example, the government is still spending. What are their procurement processes? Can you say to the government that during this pandemic, we're going to change the procurement processes to require local procurement to be undertaken to help your country or your local businesses? And where possible, talk to others, find others who've got the same agenda with you, whether that's an overlap, people who benefit from similar initiatives, and work together with them. Because bear in mind, right now, government is being overwhelmed. Everybody is suffering, and with lots and lots of little people going to them, you're not going to have as loud and powerful a voice as if you can go there in collaboration with others. So collaboration is going to be a real focus here. But also start thinking about the longer term projects. Think about what is it that your members are going to need come November, December, when all this is over. How can you help them to rebuild their lives, rebuild their businesses, rebuild their health, whatever it is that you look after? If you're a sporting club, how can you help people to start reconnecting with their sport and changing their habits? Because one of the other challenges that you have here is it takes roughly 3 weeks to set a habit. You're about to have people locked at home for potentially months on end. You're going to have to get people back out and changing those habits. Now, you've got the exerting influence. So what can you do on behalf of your members? But the other thing is, what can you do for your members? Now, one of the things that I've noticed in the past 25 plus years that I've been working with associations is that there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of projects and programs that we do that aren't necessarily amazing in terms of providing value to members, but we do them because we've always done them. Now's the time to get rid of that crap. You need to be able to look about who are your different member segments and what do they need from you right now. And in fact, I'm just going to go show you a sample segmentation that I used pre this, but I'm going to go to there and come back to this. So if you can have a look at this, figure out who your segments are. Are they new businesses? Are they students? Are they people early in their career? Are they people who are retired? Go through and figure out what your segments are. Now, when you're looking at identifying your market segments, and this can, I'm not talking about doing big research projects. This is something that can be done quite effectively sitting around a video conference with others. But you want to look for 4 things. You've got to have a commonality of need. So you know that, for example, large established corporate businesses probably have in-house ability to assist them with managing their IR issues at the moment. They're probably going to be more interested in proactively influencing the advocacy environment to generate the stimulus support that's required. So commonality of need. A commonality of response. If presented with the same messaging, are they going to respond in the same way? They've got to be a reasonable size. You can't have a group of 1, you can't have a group of 1 million. And they've got to be something that's accessible. You may know that left-handed members need you more than anyone else, but if you can get a list of all your left-handed members, I want the name of your list broker. So go through and do a quick segmentation and try and identify who are your priority segments, who are the people who are going to suffer most, what are the products and services that we need to be providing over the next few months that is going to help those people specifically. And for some, it might be one thing, and that's okay. Not everyone is going to come and want everything that you do. You need to focus right now, and where you just need to find where can you do the most powerful impact for these people. And some of the ways that you can achieve that is, for example, if you have becoming a trusted source of truth. Right now, people don't want information. We're drowning in information. It's coming at us left, right, and center. What people want is a trusted source of curated insights to understand, how is this going to affect my business? How is this going to affect my sport, my career, my health condition? What is the impact for me? And this is where you have a huge opportunity, because you can take that information, you can curate it into providing something that's genuinely insightful and useful. And that's about what the association can pass out to its members. But there's often another element that's forgotten here. And this is something Mark referred to earlier, is how do we also, at the same time as providing those insights, that source of truth, facilitate connections between our members, become a platform that enables our members to engage with each other, to share stories, support, advice, assistance, and also to overcome that feeling of isolation, to know that you've actually got somebody who's going through what you're doing. And I think that's really an underutilized but really, really necessary thing right now for people to do. Yeah, and so I saw Louise is just asking if attendees will get the slides. I'm happy to include them on Monday, not a problem at all. And the other thing the fourth thing on providing solutions to members is something which has come up a few times now. It's the mental health support and potential financial relief. Now, you necessarily don't necessarily have a lot of income to be pulling on, but you may put in place processes for dues relief to say that if somebody can't pay their dues this year, that's okay. If you've got annualized subscriptions, look at offering direct debit. So somebody might not be able to afford the $300 a year, but you divide that into 12 payments, suddenly it becomes more palatable and something that they can. There's nothing to say you need to give away the dollars as a first port of call, but have some triage, some process that underpins how can somebody access support if they need it. And the mental health support is something which I think is really important, not just for your members, but for your staff, because everybody, as I said before, is undergoing some kind of personal trauma right now. How can you assist people to move through that effectively and understand how to talk to others? Because people respond in different ways. And so that might be something as simple as talking to a mental health specialist who can provide you with some tools that you can give to your members. And it doesn't have to be couched in that we're going to have to help you look after your mental health. It may be activities and promotions and ways of engaging members. For example, one group that I'm talking to at the moment, they've got a lot of kids at home. So what they're doing is they're creating activities that the kids can then share online to be able to do at home to keep them active and engaged and connecting with other kids so they don't feel isolated. So this is what we're talking about, solutions to members. It's really critical to get rid of the faff and focus on what it is that you're doing well. But the area that people forget here is you get a bit shy and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to intrude. Members are often going through these things, but if you can be doing all the wonderful things in the world, but if nobody knows that you're doing it, it hasn't really happened. You need to be able to get the word out there. And this is often a slide I use for membership, but it's funny enough, it's as applicable now for getting the word out and understanding what you need to do to be able to let your members know what's going on, connect them to the right services, but also to make sure that you're doing the right thing for your own organization. When I'm looking at associations about business development, right now there are people, I've got 2 raised hands going on. Will there be future sessions for different association sectors? Gillian, I'm really happy to do that. And any feedback, if people want to email me, I'll provide the details at the end of the session. These are really quick and easy for me to run. I'm discovering I really love webinars, and I'm really happy to run them for any type of thing. So just send me through an email. So talking about these layers of business development, if you want to be able to be getting your members using these new services that you're coming up with, I know of a couple of associations that are actually going out with online exhibitions and online conferences. There's Joanne Jacobs is running online hackathons now, and I don't know if you've done the hackathons before, but they're incredible and the online stuff looks brilliant. There are so many new tools that are going to provide solutions to members and potentially with revenue, but you need to tell your members about it. Now, you've got, at the moment, wonderful channels. You've got phone, direct mail, email, online channels, and all of them are wonderful and measurable. So you can get out and try them all. But when we're talking about engaging with people, these are the 4 levels. So outsourced transactional is when you use an outsourced call center, and they're really good if you're running a campaign. So say, for example, you've shifted to an online conference, you want to be able to tell all your members and your pre-registered delegates about it. Get an outsourced call center. They can do all the calls in a week. You can have an immediate idea of how you're going, and if particularly good if you a small staff, or you're trying to mitigate the fact that some of your staff are going to be off sick. Now, I know, Colin, I can see you're here. I'm sorry, I mentioned your name in here, dobbed you in. Here in Australia, Optimum Contact is the only association-specific outbound call centre that I'm aware of, and we use them a lot. And I've got to say, it's brilliant because it's measurable. So that's the first thing. If you do want to do something quickly, if you want to get a quick short-term return on something, go your outsourced call centre, because often you won't have the capacity to do it. The next one is in-house transactional. Have you got someone on the phone who's talking to people and letting them know, making sure you're getting through? I know with one organisation, they sent an email out to all of their members, and to all of the members who didn't open this critical email about what was happening with the crisis, they actually have somebody on staff who's calling them all, because they wanted to make sure that everyone got the message. So they dropped out the list of people who didn't open the email, making sure it's getting through. So someone who can do that transactional in-house is important. Of course, you want to look at your in-house high value people. Right now with the events shifting, a lot of sponsorships are at risk. Having somebody on staff who's responsible for your high value partnerships is critical, particularly because you've got to look at ways to retain your existing sponsors, as well as shifting into acquiring new as soon as it's appropriate. And if we are running a webinar about this next week, because what's happened is for the sponsors now, their agenda and objectives have completely shifted, and you need to be ready there, because now with all of the channels that we're talking to members being so measurable, they need to focus on those partners who can deliver a measurable return on investment for them. That's what they're looking for, and you need to have somebody who's dedicated to figuring out, well, how are we going to do that in a way that benefits our members and generates us an income? There's a massive amount of opportunity there to be considered. And of course, the last area when I'm looking at business development and sustainability is in-house structural. Getting somebody to take a look through the business and saying, what shouldn't we be doing? What should we be cutting? Where are the opportunities to leverage off our existing products and services? Sorry, and Michael, you've just said my email. I'll put it up at the end of the session, but it's belinda@smsonline.net.au. So these are the areas to keep in line for your layers of business development. The next thing I want to talk about though, is you can be doing all these other things brilliantly well, but if you aren't ensuring that your organization is also running sustainably, then it's all for naught, because you may not survive the crisis. And that is why it's really important to be able to look at these things here. First, cash flow, an obvious one. Look at cutting unnecessary costs, but also looking at offsetting. Talk to the tax office. The tax office is very amenable now, and so are a lot of suppliers, leases for your landlords. Find out where you can put off whatever you can put off, so that you can actually start to accumulate, so you're working a bit further ahead. And also identify where you can pick up some potential new income streams. Managing your cash flow is going to be absolutely critical right now. And this is an opportunity to shed unnecessary cost. In fact, one of the things that's been really interesting to see is the level of innovations and change that's being forced through that would never ever have got through anyway. Take advantage of the opportunity. Sponsors, I've spoken about that. Their objectives have shifted. You've got to be ready to deliver on that. This can be a thing that has a huge impact on your organization. The other one is the staff and culture. When your staff are working from home, how do you manage your organizational culture? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep aware of what's going on in their lives to understand if they're going through some kind of trauma that may need to be dealt with before they can actually service your organization effectively? Putting in place a structure and having someone responsible for that is really important. And the other thing is, you've got to have some risk mitigation. If you've got a whole heap of staff off sick, how do you ensure that your members are getting a consistent experience from your organization? How can you ensure that if your staff are down, that your members can still get the help and support they need? And that is why it's really important, as much as you can, implement processes and technology. Marketing automation is amazing. I have a client of mine that put marketing automation just around its new member integration and its renewal processes, and they halved their attrition rate in 1 year on tens of thousands of members. Now, this is something that we should be looking at for everything else. If we can put some marketing automation into the way that we engage with our members, so that's where there's an email goes out, and if somebody opens it, one thing happens, and if they open and click on it, it's something else, and if they don't open it, it's something else, and it follows a tree, and it only escalates it up to human intervention when it's absolutely required. Now, that is a great way of systematizing what you've got to reduce the potential impact of your staff being off sick. So if there are any processes or automation and also redundancies that you can build into your systems, I would really recommend looking at that sooner rather than later, because depending on which country you're in at the moment, a full lockdown has a massive on-flow effect. And I know one of the things that happens here is the biggest issue, the biggest hold-up I've seen from associations being able to adapt effectively and to implement the kind of things that we're talking about here is the leadership and governance. It is at the time now where associations have to overcome past differences that may happen between CEOs and boards and work together to quickly and effectively initiate the change that's required and to push it through. This means nimble decision-making processes and looking at the evidence rather than doing a knee-jerk reaction to understand. So if you're going to go through and say, do your segmentation with your members, go through, figure out what your market segments are, call and talk to a couple of members. Don't just rely on your board's opinion of what you should do. Quickly pick up. You can do the whole thing in a day, and excuse my dogs and the delivery that's just come in downstairs. So you can actually go through that in a day, make out your segments, figure out what their issues are, but validate that by calling and talking to a couple of non-active members to find out if your assumptions are correct. We need to be nimble, but we still need to test our assumptions. And then once you have made a decision moving forward, make it sure that you have a united front. So I've got here, your company sends the staff a voucher to buy a beverage for Friday for the staff meeting. See, I think that's a great idea, and have everyone sit down and make it fun. I know we're going through some tough times, but you know, if you want to motivate your staff and your teams forward to make change, talk about the positive impact that you can do and that you're making on people. Because one of the things that we've been doing from the research that we've looked, and David, I see you've raised your hand. I can see some great things coming up in the question and answer about daily Zoom meetings and needing the agility. I'm not quite sure how to deal with the raise your hand area. So if you wanted to pop a message into the chat, I'd be happy to ask any questions, because I can see the hands being raised, but I'm not quite sure how to pick them up just yet. I'm going to wrap up for questions in a second. So just looking at, oh gosh, the governance, motivating people. So one of the things with associations, we've been doing research last year, and we found that there's epiphany moments, because the decision to join is not the same as the decision to belong. The decision to join is a suck and a see, and the decision to belong is an emotional decision to be a member of the organisation. And when you talk to people who are passionate about their association, often they can relate that story to you. For example, I can remember when I first fell in love with the association sector, because I was working at one of the retail traders associations, and a florist rang and she was in tears. Her whole life was falling apart because she was losing money on her merchant fees, staffing, all these issues. And over the course of that phone call, I actually managed to solve every issue she had. And she was in absolute joy at the end of it. And I think our association was her favorite thing in the world. She became one of our most passionate advocates. And this is, when you look at this kind of thing, it works not just for members, but for staff. When staff can see the impact of the work that you're doing, when they know that you've saved a business, you've saved someone's career, you've helped make their world or their life a better place, that actually motivates for more. So what can you do from the top, from your leadership, to bring in your staff and make them part of solving the problems and the challenges that your members are going to face? And this is just a really quick overview. I thought I'll give you a half an hour overview, and then I want to spend 15 minutes going through questions. I do know that people are asking about other resources. If you look at SMS Online, we've got the strategies, any templates, any resources that we come up with are going to be on there. And we've also got a webinar, and I'll send you the link on the email on Monday, which is about the next one, about how do you create your association partnership recovery program. So how do you deal with with sponsors and things like that. But what I'd like to do now is to spend some time, and I'm going to stop sharing this. Oh, sorry, one other thing is early next week, I'm going to send you a link to an online community where the issues that I've raised today about the pandemic and about how do you do influence and leadership, we've got a stack of resources there that everyone can talk about. It's a very collaborative community, and I'll send you a link and you'll be the first people to have a look at it, because we didn't plan on launching it for a little while, but we've accelerated the launch because we realized associations need a space that they can come together, connect, talk, share, because we're all in this together to make such a big difference to our members. And I'm hoping that this strategy and these ideas will help you to be able to make the difference that you need to be successful. And I'll send you through that link so you can be part of it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing this screen so I can come back to you and I can see some people again. Now, can I ask, I've got some questions coming through here. Sarah's saying it's forcing us to adapt our very new strategic plan. Some things are so much more critical and others will be benched. I think it's a really focused plan for our staff, which has been positive, silver lining of sorts. And do you know, that's right. There's no more business as usual. We actually need to go back to existing strategic plans and say, what do we need to cut? How do we need to pivot, considering that this is not something that's going to be over in a month or two. This is something where we're going to be dealing with this still at Christmas time. And I can see here that Matthew has also mentioned that our community, if you go to ourcommunity.com.au, Save Our Sector, has got a whole heap of resources out there as well. So I recommend checking them out. They've got some fantastic resources there. My internet connections, I can see the few issues there with internet connections as well. Now, I've deliberately left us with this 10 minutes here because I want to be able to answer your specific questions. If you wanted to pop anything up in the open ones, in relation, can you put some of us in relation so we can benchmark on ideas? So someone's saying, can we share some ideas about what people are doing? So if you want to pop up any ideas into either the chat or the question, I'm happy to share what we're seeing coming up there. Okay, so what I might do is, can you just put it into the chat there? Would anyone like me to talk more about going through the different ways of segmenting your members to be able to figure out what products and services that they need? Or with the community side of things? Those are the things that I've noticed that we've had quite a few questions on. Okay, so one of the things, and I will go up, I put a slide up because I wasn't sure if we were going to have time to go through it, but I will quickly just share it. And you'll get to see. So I talked about the fact that we've been doing a lot of journey mapping work with different associations. And this is what we've come up with. So essentially what we've found is that traditional segmentation models are a bit challenging because when somebody goes through their life, they're on lots and lots of different journeys. There's the life stage journey from, you're a child, you're a preteen, you're a teenager, and there's different issues that occur to you as you go through your life. But then on a business ownership journey, it's very different as well because you go through viability assessment, pre-opening, all the way up to when you retire or sell. Now, what we've found is people's understanding of things when we talk about, for example, exerting influence. If somebody's just started their business and they've only been in business, say, in that critical first 5 years, they're much more interested about what's in it for me. How can you provide direct support to me to help my business be successful? Very focused there. Whereas the longer that somebody's been in business and the larger the business is, the more interested they are, not just in supporting the advocacy that you're doing, but being proactively involved in it. So if I'm segmenting, say, by business ownership, I'm going to be looking for factors such as that. If someone's been in business for a while and has got a larger business, then they're probably going to be want to be involved in how you're effectively exerting influence on their behalf to be able to get government changes to legislation or similar for them. But if somebody's only in that first critical few years, if they're a small business, they're probably going to be interested as well as in how can you help them practically now with the tools that they need to get through. For example, I know that, and I think Matthew might be on here, got a webinar from somebody about how to grow your business and how to market yourself more effectively during this crisis, and just running that webinar out to members, giving them tools and ideas for how they can go through what they're going through at the moment. Because often when people are in crisis mode, they freeze, and you want to get members out of that freeze if they've gone into it. If you look through the next level is career progression, we found a similar kind of aligned thing with career progression. Somebody who's very advanced in their career has got very different requirements from somebody who's fairly new in their career. And then how do you provide different benefits and services? So for somebody who's, say, a new graduate, they're very much about, well, how do I understand my career pathway? They don't often have a lot of money available, so they might need discounts in that. They need to know, not just be kept up to date, like somebody who's been a member, been in that career for a while needs, but someone who's going to bring them up to date to give them the context for what's going on. Interestingly, when it comes to the next set of journeys, association related, we had some really interesting findings, because what we found is that the reasons people don't get involved are because they didn't know the opportunity existed, they didn't know how to start the opportunity, which was a really interesting one. And also, I don't know if you guys have seen Meet the Fockers, but in this movie, they've got this thing that says there's a circle and you're either in the circle or outside the circle. And a lot of members seem to think that there's this Meet the Fockers style circle that they don't have, they're not in the circle. And so they don't even bother trying. So if you're wanting to get members involved in what you're doing moving forward, you need to be going out and proactively inviting them and making them aware that they particularly are welcome to get involved. Because moving forward, if you're going to do, say, an online community to get people involved, an online community is not the association telling members stuff. An online community is the association facilitating engagement between members, and that doesn't happen overnight. You need a way to build that momentum in that community, and it's talking to your members who are now at home and proactively encouraging them to share and finding mechanisms where you ask them to share specific things or get involved. That's going to be what can help you to build that most quickly. And of course, there's heaps of other journeys there as well. So when you do your segmentation, you may not end up with a fixed segmentation, but identifying what are your major groups, because they're going to each be have a different type of need. And the other thing is, do some metrics on that to understand the impact that you're making. So what's the size of the segment? What's your market penetration? What's your retention rate on there? And then you can actually understand the impact not just of the work you're doing, but of the pandemic crisis on that particular industry. And that can give you data that you can use to argue for things like stimulus and recovery packages. Now, I've got, now any questions? I'm going to stop that share through there and have a look over at the chat again. The online professional development, it's been really interesting. I've run a few strategic planning sessions over the last 2 weeks on webinar, and we've actually had better outcomes than we get face-to-face. So you may find this signals a big shift across. I've had a lot of reports from people having a lot of success with webinar programs and with sort of the member coffees or via webinar and that kind of thing. The short courses are excellent, and tailoring those short courses to the skills that people are going to need as we go through this crisis is essential. So Wendy, I can see you put ramping up and leveraging the online professional, the blog posts, and also in addition to the serious stuff, putting some fun stuff out there as well, making it a positive spin. I mean, we all know there's a lot of crappy things going on right now, but by giving your members hope and positivity and sharing the great stories, even if it's just what are the small wins that you had today, really helps to lift the mood of somebody, because this isn't something that's going to disappear overnight. We've got to find a way to keep people's spirits up long term. Now, can you give some advice for an NFP associate with members from young adults to 90-year-olds? So basically, Owen, I'm just trying to think which association that you're with, because it really depends on segmenting. Whether your age is going to be appropriate segmentation depends on what your core purpose and your core function is. So I'm just looking through the chats and the questions here. The number of people connecting through Zoom is awesome, but I have heard that they're downgrading for some of their free access stuff. So I'd advise getting a paid subscription if you can. Do I have a crisis to plan template, says Bianca? Yes, I do. You can download it off sms.net.au, but I'll also email you a copy afterwards along with the slides. Grant has said, we've noticed in New Zealand there has been a blitz of information from all sources that changes on an hourly basis, especially since lockdown. When do you become the source of truth? you become the source of truth immediately, because what you do is you take that information and you curate it to how specifically it affects your members. So if your members are in the building industry, for example, and they're coming out with a government stimulus package, then I'd be looking through that package and saying, right, if you're an owner builder, if you own your own building company, you need to know this. If you're working for someone, you need to know this. That level of curation, and everybody understands that information is coming through fast. If it's coming from a government source, you can generally trust it. But what I'd say is validate the information before it goes out to members, because they want to know that you've curated it for them, but also you first off found out, is it the truth? Is it something that's coming from a trusted source? The Infrastructure New Zealand, at Infrastructure New Zealand, we're currently calling all our members to get the vibe of the sector. Fantastic calling out, better understand their challenges and develop the recovery response. Members are appreciative of our call, as it's part of information gathering. It's part information gathering and part therapy. Yep, I've heard that from a lot of people. Some members just need to vent, and they're grateful they can do it with us. Certainly worth our time in member retention and engagement. Sarah, that is 100% what we are seeing from all quarters. Getting out there and talking to members, because you've got people who are used to, for a lot of these people, going out to their offices, to their workplaces every day, who suddenly aren't. Now, for us like me, who is an introvert, I'm adjusting. But for those people who are extroverts who need that interpersonal communication, they're isolated from their support networks. A phone call to a member, if you can manage it, is a great way, as you say, of validating and providing support. So you've got a lot of different ways that you can help your members there. Now, what I'm going to do is I've just put up the, just before we head off, as I say, we've got a huge amount of resources that it's not just that we're providing. So we're in this for a long time together. So what we're doing is you can go to smsonline.net.au and pick up the things that we've talked about. I'll email you about this online community on Monday. But really, this isn't just a one-way street. I'd prefer to do a webinar where we're all on video, but this was my first time doing the Zoom webinar like this, so I thought I'd play it safe. But if you've got ideas for what you want and how we can make a difference, can you please send me an email, mention on the community when I send you through the link on Monday, because we're going to be proactively engaging, not just from me, but you've got, and I can see on our delegate list, we've got some amazing people here, like Mark Levin and Sue Froggan and all these other fantastic people who've got an amazing array of insights, and they also, because they work with so many different associations, they can pick up ideas and drop them in. So when we send you through the link to this community, come and log in, and if you've got questions, we're all really, really willing to help and assist, because really that's the only way we're going to be successful. The association sector, this is the time that we exist for. We exist to make a powerful difference to our members when they're at their lowest point, and it doesn't get much lower than this. And if we all come in together and we share what we're doing and we work in that spirit of collaboration, then we can help get our members and ourselves through this to make it a really lovely silver lining for what we're doing. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming through and joining me today. As I say, got any questions, let me know. And I look forward to talking to you all a lot more as we move forward. Thank you. And I'll stay online for a while for anybody who's got questions that they might want to ask. Thanks, guys. 45 minutes goes very fast. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. Oh, I love what you put up, Leanne, there. I love what you put up, Leanne, about how the people are connecting with each other, the frontline doctors. I think that's a fantastic example of you facilitating the community. And Alison, you've asked about the slides. I will send a copy out on Monday to everybody who's registered. So that's absolutely fine. I'll get that out. Wonderful, everyone. See, we've still got a few people on. Any other questions? Yeah, and all participants, sorry, Gillian, yes, all participants will receive the email with the links. Every single person who's registered will get that through. And I'll make sure any additional resources that anybody sends me before Sunday night that are relevant, I'll get out on that list as well, because the more info, the better at the moment. Thanks, Joe. Awesome. Good luck, everybody. Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll talk soon.